With the WINN FM News, I am Kevin Brown. Our top stories. St. Kitts and Nevis focuses on water conservation amidst global glacier concerns. U.S. Department of State spokesperson, there is no list on recent alleged draft travel ban list. St. Kitts and Nevis hosts Green Climate Fund Caribbean Regional Dialogue. St. Lucia Prime Minister cautions against reckless statements amid U.S. travel restrictions. Guyana Opposition Party calls for Guyana Online Academy of Learning to be paused and reviewed. Internationally, Israel has resumed combat in Gaza with full force, says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, the details. As World Water Day approaches on March 22nd, St. Kitts and Nevis is emphasizing the critical importance of sustainable water management mirroring global concerns, highlighted by this year's theme, Glacial Preservation. The Honourable Conris Maynard, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, Domestic Transport, ICT and Posts, underscored the dual-pronged approach of government investment and individual responsibility in ensuring the Federation's water security. While St. Kitts and Nevis may not have glaciers, Minister Maynard highlighted the relevance of the global theme to the local context.
Our connection to the preservation of glaciers is that the rapid melting of glaciers due to rise in Earth's temperature would result in sea level rise, and this would lead to flooding of low-lying coastal areas and a decrease in the safe yield of our coastal aquifers.
The government is actively investing in solutions to enhance water availability, including well drilling, a 2 million gallon desalination plant, and water infrastructure upgrades to ensure a reliable 24-hour water supply. Minister Maynard also addressed the issue of past oversights and affirmed the government's commitment to rectifying the situation.
This lack of timely investment in our well drilling program is the cause of the water shortages that several communities are grappling with today. Rest assured that this cabinet is committed to ensuring that the necessary expenditure is made to bring this water shortage to an end in the next 12 to 24 months.
Beyond government initiatives, Minister Maynard stressed the importance of individual responsibility in water conservation. He pointed out the significant water loss from private properties, often due to leaks, and called for a change in public attitude toward water usage.
Simply put, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water is lost daily from our properties. Perhaps 3/4 of it flows through leaking toilets into our septic tanks. The time has come for us here in St. Kitts to have a paradigm shift in how we deal with water. We are going to start taking water conservation to a whole new level. We are going to stop taking water for granted. We are going to start by holding ourselves accountable for the water we use.
Minister Maynard also addressed the need for fair water rates and responsible bill payment.
Our water rates, which have not been increased since 2001, is about the cheapest anywhere in the world. Yet there are many customers that do not pay their water bills. This is not fair and reasonable to those who do pay their bills. We therefore have given the Water Services Department our support to ensure that everyone starts paying their water bills.
He encouraged those facing financial difficulties to contact Water Services Department to discuss payment options. The minister concluded by expressing gratitude to the St. Kitts Water Services Department staff and inviting the public to participate in World Water Week 2025 activities.
I wish at this time, as the Minister with responsibility for water services, and on behalf of the Cabinet, to record my deep appreciation to the staff of the Water Services Department for their hard work and commitment to ensuring that we all have a fairly reliable water service in spite of the fact that we currently have less water available than is required.
Minister Maynard declared Water Week open, encouraging participation in the scheduled events. The week's events included worship at Antioch Baptist Church on March 16th, an exhibition at the Water Services Department on March 17th and 18th, upcoming a primary school quiz, a Customer Appreciation Day on March 21st, and a staff scavenger hunt on World Water Day, March 22nd. The call to action is clear. Water is life. Every drop counts. As World Water Day approaches on March 22nd, St. Kitts and Nevis is emphasizing the critical importance of sustainable water management mirroring global concerns, highlighted by this year's theme, glacial preservation. The Honorable Conrys Maynard, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Energy, Utilities, Domestic Transport, ICT and Posts, underscored the dual-pronged approach of government investment and individual responsibility in ensuring the Federation's water security. While St. Kitts and Nevis may not have glaciers, Minister Maynard highlighted the relevance of the global theme to the local context.
Our connection to the preservation of glaciers is that the rapid melting of glaciers due to rise in Earth's temperature would result in sea level rise, and this would lead to flooding of low-lying coastal areas and a decrease in the safe yield of our coastal aquifers.
The government is actively investing in solutions to enhance water availability, including well drilling, a 2 million gallon desalination plant, and water infrastructure upgrades to ensure a reliable 24-hour water supply. Minister Maynard also addressed the issue of past oversights and affirmed the government's commitment to rectifying the situation.
This lack of timely investment in our well drilling program is the cause of the water shortages that several communities are grappling with today. Rest assured that this cabinet is committed to ensuring that the necessary expenditure is made to bring this water shortage to an end in the next 12 to 24 months.
Beyond government initiatives, Minister Maynard stressed the importance of individual responsibility in water conservation. He pointed out the significant water loss from private properties, often due to leaks, and called for a change in public attitude toward water usage.
Simply put, hundreds of thousands of gallons of water is lost daily from our properties. Perhaps 3/4 of it flows through leaking toilets into our septic tanks. The time has come for us here in St. Kitts to have a paradigm shift in how we deal with water. We are going to start taking water conservation to a whole new level. We are going to stop taking water for granted. We are going to start by holding ourselves accountable for the water we use.
Minister Maynard also addressed the need for fair water rates and responsible bill payment.
Our water rates, which have not been increased since 2001, is about the cheapest anywhere in the world. Yet there are many customers that do not pay their water bills. This is not fair and reasonable to those who do pay their bills. We therefore have given the Water Services Department our support to ensure that everyone starts paying their water bills.
He encouraged those facing financial difficulties to contact Water Services Department to discuss payment options. The minister concluded by expressing gratitude to the St. Kitts Water Services Department staff and inviting the public to participate in World Water Week 2025 activities.
I wish at this time, as the Minister with responsibility for water services, and on behalf of the Cabinet, to record my deep appreciation to the staff of the Water Services Department for their hard work and commitment to ensuring that we all have a fairly reliable water service in spite of the fact that we currently have less water available than is required.
Minister Maynard declared Water Week open, encouraging participation in the scheduled events. The week's events included worship at Antioch Baptist Church on March 16th, an exhibition at the Water Services Department on March 17th and 18th, upcoming a primary school quiz, a Customer Appreciation Day on March 21st, and a staff scavenger hunt on World Water Day, March 22nd. The call to action is clear. Water is life. Every drop counts. U.S. Department of State spokesperson Tammy Bruce, during the department press briefing on March 17, 2025, denounced the existence of an alleged draft list published on several news sites purporting that some 43 countries would face new visa restrictions.
Well, first of all, there is no list. What people are looking at over these last several days is not a list that exists here that is being acted on. There is a review, as we know through the President's executive order, for us to look at the nature of what's going to help keep America safer in dealing with the issue of visas and who's allowed into the country. But what has been touted as something that is an item through the State Department, it just simply isn't the case. So the premise, I have to say, I certainly can't speak to because it's not accurate.
The alleged list named 6 countries from the Caribbean region: St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominica, St. Lucia, Haiti, Venezuela, and Cuba. According to international reports, there were 3 lists: red, orange, and yellow. The red list bars 11 countries entry to the U.S. outright and included Venezuela and Cuba. The orange list included Haiti and required an in-person interview to be granted a visa for entry into the U.S. St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, and Dominica were included. In the yellow list of 22 countries, the U.S. said had 60 days to address perceived discrepancies. These included, quote, failing to share with the United States information about incoming travelers, purportedly inadequate security practices for issuing passports, or the selling of citizenship to people from banned countries, which could serve as a loophole around the restrictions, end quote. Following the report on the alleged draft list, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis issued a statement explaining that, quote, the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and its embassy in Washington, D.C. have engaged with U.S. officials. Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew confirmed that no formal or informal communication had been received from the U.S. government regarding the alleged inclusion of St. Kitts and Nevis on a so-called yellow list, end quote. Although Bruce denounced the list as an actionable issue, she did say that there is an ongoing review of visa allowances into the U.S. and how that might affect the country's safety as the Trump administration continues to clamp down on immigration issues.
So that's not something that is certainly I can talk about regarding something that doesn't exist, but certainly when that review is done, we'll have something that we can discuss.
The citizenship by investment programs in the region have continuously been an issue related to people or bad actors who may try to gain access to the US, UK, and Europe through these programs. Such concerns have prompted continued changes made to the programs in the region. St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister the Honorable Dr. Terence Drew has also admitted that the CBI program's revenues have taken a hit since its implementation to meet the standards of international partners. The outcome of the review and its effect on regional access to the U.S. and the region's CBI programs remain to be seen.
As the Federation joins the rest of the world in recognizing Oral Health Week and celebrating World Oral Health Day, health experts are urging people to pay closer attention to their oral hygiene and overall well-being. Leading this effort is Dr. Natalie Osborne, who is dedicated to educating the public about the serious health risk linked to poor oral hygiene. She highlighted conditions such as heart disease, cancer, and pneumonia, emphasizing that neglecting oral health can contribute to these and other serious illnesses.
We're supposed to brush our teeth and floss daily. We know that. So it might be surprising to many that it's not just about oral health care, but it's about overall wellness. And we got to stop thinking of our mouth as different or distinct, but they're interconnected, our mouth and our overall health. So if you've got problems with your teeth, with your gums, that can lead to different health issues like heart disease. There's studies that confirms that cardiovascular problems are highly linked with oral hygiene and poor oral care. You can have difficulty having a good nutrition. You have tooth loss. You're not able to enjoy your food. You have tooth that are loose. You have exposed gums. All of that can affect your nutrition and how your body aliments as well too. You can have things, it's highly associated with diabetes, and it's a two-way street where diabetes can affect your oral health and your oral health affects diabetes and other things like that. So that is why there is direct relationship, and we have to take care of our oral health as well as we take care of our body.
Dr. Osborne specifically pointed out the dangers of plaque buildup and its impact on heart diseases and strokes.
Vessels that go to the heart directly, that give nutrients to the heart muscle and the heart wall, those are called the coronary vessels. And if they become destroyed or narrowed because what? Some of the same plaque, it can lead to atherosclerosis, where there's buildup of plaques and stuff inside these blood vessels, narrowing them and decreasing the blood supply to the heart. You want to know that it can clog your arteries, of course. It can lead to things like stroke, because once there's a clogged artery, there's decreased blood supply going to that particular area, and that's the blood vessels to the brain that can lead to things like stroke. Another important one you've heard, persons may have heard of, endocarditis. Nothing more than an infection of the lining of the innermost lining of the heart. Once we hear itis, we know it's an infectious or inflammatory process. And especially persons who already have heart disease, they may have a heart valve replacement, okay, artificial valve. What happens? If you have poor oral health, those bacteria can get into your bloodstream and travel to your heart, okay? Colonize on these artificial valves and a heart that is already damaged and multiply and creating this severe infection that has a high mortality or morbidity, meaning that the individual can die or have severe heart disease and heart failure.
She also stressed that pregnant women are not exempt from these risks, warning that poor oral hygiene can lead to complications such as stillbirths and other pregnancy-related issues.
You're bringing a new life. That life depends solely on you for nutrients, all right? And if you have poor dental health, of course, you can create certain problems for this. You can have premature birth. So your baby, you can have a severe infection leading to a premature birth. Low weight birth in your baby or your newborn. It can lead to miscarriage, okay? It can lead to things like stillbirth and fetal growth restriction.
Additionally, pneumonia remains a key concern for health officials as research links poor oral health to an increased risk of respiratory infections.
So pneumonia is nothing more than an infection in the lung. Many times you would have heard this, oh, they have an infection in the lung. That is what we call pneumonia. So what happens, especially in persons who overall are unwell, they have their immunocompromised already. These individuals, if they have poor oral health, these bacteria, they can have an infection that then travels into the lung, get into the respiratory tract. Remember, they're so very closely associated. And then what happens? That bacteria gets there, multiply in the lung, and give you or worsen any sort of lung infection that a person may have.
World Oral Health Day is observed annually on March 20th. And this year's theme is A Happy Mouth is a Happy Mind. This year, officials are focusing on the connection between oral health and mental well-being, reinforcing the message that good oral hygiene contributes to overall health and happiness.
The St. Kitts Marriott Resort will host the Green Climate Fund GCF Caribbean Regional Dialogue from March 17th through 20th, 2025. Regional leaders and stakeholders convene to address climate action, sustainable growth, and inclusive development within the region. The dialogue aims to foster collaboration and accelerate climate resilience in the face of escalating environmental challenges facing island nations. Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew, delivered the keynote address, emphasizing the importance of the dialogue and St. Kitts and Nevis's commitment to addressing climate change. Prime Minister Drew highlighted the region's multifaceted crisis and the need for resilient economic transformation, underscoring the significance of the GCF roundtable being held in St. Kitts and Nevis. Dr. Drew reiterated his nation's determination to be an active participant in shaping its future.
I want to thank you for choosing St. Kitts and Nevis. And it shows that St. Kitts and Nevis is making its representation as a country within the Caribbean a SIDS, that we are determined to be at the table. Because I was told once that if you are not at the table, you are on the menu. And we don't intend to be eaten.
He stressed the importance of collaboration, highlighting the shared commitment to building a sustainable future for the Caribbean in the face of rising sea levels, intense hurricanes, and increased droughts. The Prime Minister also discussed St. Kitts and Nevis's Sustainable Island State Agenda, which prioritizes clean energy and pledges a 61% reduction in carbon emissions by 2030 through investments in geothermal energy and a transition to electric vehicles.
Our commitment to renewable energy and energy efficiency offers us a pathway to not only mitigate the threats caused by climate change, but also to stimulate economic growth and enhance resilience. In other words, dealing with the scourge of climate change is not opposed to economic growth. For us, they are one and the same.
Dr. Drew emphasized that climate action and economic growth are interconnected and lauded upcoming discussions on the Nevis geothermal project. Despite political differences, he acknowledged the federal government's and the Nevis Island administration's unified approach to geothermal development.
And so he and I, we have sat, and with all of the other differences, there's one difference that we would not have, and that is a difference on whether we should develop geothermal here in the Federation or not.
Furthermore, Prime Minister Drew commended the GFC for its role as a ready, willing, and indispensable partner in assisting Caribbean nations in achieving their climate goals. He detailed the US $8.3 million in readiness financing accessed by St. Kitts and Nevis to enhance the capacity of national institutions. He cited the potential of GCF support for geothermal development, referencing the US $80 million package implemented through the Inter-American Development Bank and the Caribbean Development Bank. Dr. Drew said that while St. Kitts and Nevis has received least support from the GCF compared to other countries in the region, efforts are being made to accelerate progress, and this meeting will be pivotal in ensuring their active participation.
It is important, therefore, that we as a region always promote the interconnectedness of our sustainable development priorities. In St. Kitts and Nevis, our sustainable island state agenda is holistic, focusing also on a reliable and sustainable water supply, climate-smart agriculture, and resilient housing, just to name a few. I am aware that St. Kitts and Nevis has in GCF's pipeline over US $60 million in potential projects, focusing on our water and agriculture sectors, and these are working their way through the feasibility stage. In Barbados and Grenada, we have seen the GCF approve over US $200 million in project financing, including over $140 million in grants to advance climate adaptation in the water and wastewater sectors. All of this to say that GCF understands and continues to understand even more. But just a fact of life is that St. Kitts, of all the countries in the region, has had the least support thus far. However, it is being accelerated, and I'm sure this meeting in St. Kitts and Nevis at this time will be pivotal in making sure that we are at the table and not on the menu. So to wrap up, I want to say that the GCF is more than just a financing partner. They are committed to ensuring that we address our climate-related challenges in a sustainable, inclusive, and gender-responsive manner.
At the opening were the Cabinet of St. Kitts and Nevis, ministers from the Nevis Island Administration, the Prime Minister of Barbados, the Honourable Mia Mottley, and other ministers from Barbados, the Executive Director of the Green Climate Fund, Mafalda Duarte, and the President of the Caribbean Development Bank, Daniel Best, as well as other dignitaries. In regional news, St. Lucia Prime Minister cautions against reckless statements amid U.S. travel restrictions, DBS St. Lucia reports.
A U.S. State Department report first referenced in the New York Times article on March 14, 2025, suggests that 43 countries, including St. Lucia, Antigua and Barbuda, Dominica, and St. Kitts and Nevis, could face travel sanctions by the United States government under a proposed three-tier system. Countries placed in the yellow category would reportedly have 60 days to address security concerns raised by U.S. agencies or risk stricter measures. In response to the media reports on Saturday, a Facebook post from the Prime Minister stated that the government had received no formal communication from the U.S. on this matter and was seeking clarification. At Monday's pre-cabinet presser, Prime Minister Philippe J. Pierre, who was reserved in his comments when questioned, said that the issue needed to be approached with caution.
We've made inquiries for our Washington office, and then they also have said to us that they have nothing official, so only what we have to go by is an article on a newspaper.
The Prime Minister has also cautioned against what he says are reckless statements regarding the matter.
It's nothing to gloat about or to laugh at or to believe that there's any political mileage to be gained by it. It's an article where all solutions should get together, because the U.S. is not dealing with a party. The U.S. is dealing with the government of St. Lucia, and the U.S. policies are changing. Look at the issues of Canada, issues of Mexico, issues of Russia and China and Ukraine. So they're not dealing with the St. Lucia Labour Party. They're dealing with a country. So we must tread with caution in that regard. We must tread with caution. And this is why we've been deliberate in our statements. We are saying that we want dialogue. We want to continue dialogue with the U.S., and dialogue will continue.
The St. Lucian leader has revealed that at the meeting of OACS countries in St. Martin on Tuesday, the situation is one which leaders will discuss. For the DBS News World, Zane Romulus reporting.
Guyana Opposition Party calls for Guyana Online Academy of Learning to be paused and reviewed. Guyana News Source has the details.
In wake of at least 2 foreign universities declaring that they had never had any relations with the Guyana Online Academy of Learning and its scholarships, the Working People's Alliance issued a call for the GOAL project to be paused and reviewed. At a press conference, WPA co-leader Dr. David Hines said serious questions continue to be raised about the GOAL programs and its affairs, and those questions should not go unanswered.
We still believe that there should be at a minimum a pause on this scholarship, and we bring it to the table and we subject it to the scrutiny of experts on this matter, and we do have experts on this matter. Again, we cannot trust this government on important projects such as the GOAL project.
The University of Staffordshire in the United Kingdom has publicly distanced itself from GOAL and the company that GOAL uses to negotiate on its behalf. Since then, at least one other British university has also distanced itself from the program, raising even more questions about the online academy and its business dealings. Today, Dr. Hines said he is in favor of scholarships, but all efforts should be made to ensure the programs are legitimate.
So we are saying, pause the project and bring it and put it to the scrutiny of experts, so that we can ensure that our young people are really getting an enhanced education rather than an education that does not enhance their skill sets, and that the Guyanese people whose money are being spent, that we are getting what we are supposed to get for the money that we are spending.
He said the government should be held fully responsible for what has now become an embarrassing situation. He said despite many questions being asked, the government has been relatively quiet on the project, which has been allocated billions of dollars. Last Thursday, Vice President Bara Jagdeo defended the scholarship program, but said questions should be channeled directly to the academy.
Nothing is fake. And he said also it's either they sort out the difference there, which could be sorted out, but if they can't sort it out, he has 2 other universities in the United Kingdom that will accept the grade that people got. They already credit them for work already done.
GOAL was allocated more than $4 billion in this year's national budget.
We now bring you these international reports.
Israel has ended the ceasefire in Gaza, launching airstrikes overnight, killing hundreds of people. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended Israel's actions, saying this is just the beginning.
We have resumed combat in full force, along with the Minister of Defense. I accepted the recommendation of the heads of the security establishment and the IDF to resume intense fighting against Hamas. From this point on, Israel will act against Hamas with growing intensity. From this point on, the negotiations will only be done under fire. Hamas, in the past day, has felt the force of our of our weapons in the past day. And I want to tell you that this is just the beginning. We will continue to fight in order to achieve all of the war goals.
The strikes took place in major cities across the Strip and have continued through the day. Israel's Prime Minister has accused Hamas of rejecting proposals to extend the ceasefire, which has been in place since January. Hamas says mediators should hold Israel fully responsible for violating the truce. Israel has been blocking aid going into Gaza since the start of this month. The BBC and other news organisations are, of course, prevented from reporting from Gaza by Israel. John Donnison watched today's events unfold from Sderot, near the Israeli-Gaza border.
In the dark of night, Israel shattered Gaza's fragile ceasefire. The message: the war's not over. And neither is the horror. He'll be lucky if he gets out alive. Today was one of the deadliest days of the last 18 months. The Strip's crippled healthcare system and hospitals were quickly overwhelmed. They're bombing people in tents, he screams. At least 174 children were killed, according to the Ministry of Health, which operates under Hamas.
One little boy had a heart, two injuries to his heart, a cracked right liver, an injury to his small bowel, his stomach, and his colon, and an injury to his left lung. I'm sure he will die.
And with the number killed today over 400 and climbing, many are already saying their last goodbyes. In Israel, in Hostage Square in Tel Aviv, the news terrified some of the families of those still being held by Hamas, among them twins Gali and Ziv Berman.
Israel government is not perfect and clearly is not doing enough because my brothers are not home. But if Hamas wanted, the hostages will be back. They are in their hands. They are right now in Gaza, not in Tel Aviv.
We will show no mercy on our enemies. Let me be very clear. Israel will not stop until all of our hostages are back home.
With Gaza already in ruins, it's the most vulnerable who are suffering the most. But after a year and a half of war, the Israeli government is sticking to its belief that Hamas only responds to force. It thinks military pressure will win it concessions if negotiations resume. But with hundreds more now dead, the optimists are few and far between. John Donnison, BBC News, on the Israel-Gaza border.
Hundreds of thousands took to the streets in Yemen on Monday in protest against the latest U.S. strikes. But Washington says this may be just the beginning. President Trump's first military operation since returning to office continued into a third day, targeting what the U.S. says are Houthi sites in Yemen.
We will use overwhelming lethal force until we have achieved our objective. With that said, and this is a very important point, this is also not an endless offensive.
The Pentagon says the ongoing operation struck at least 30 Houthi targets over the weekend, including training and weapons centers, and resulted in several dozen military casualties. It denied any civilians were hurt, despite evidence to the contrary. The U.S. also said it shot down 11 Houthi drones, which had targeted U.S. warships. Meanwhile, Trump took to social media, claiming that the Houthi attacks were being directed by Iran. Every shot fired by the Houthis will be looked upon from this point forward as being a shot fired from the weapons and leadership of Iran. And Iran will be held responsible and suffer the consequences, and those consequences will be dire. The White House press secretary reinforced that message to Iran.
There's a new sheriff in town, and this president is not just going to sit on his hands and allow terrorists to launch attacks on commercial vessels and U.S. naval ships.
The Houthis had not attacked ships in the Red Sea since the Gaza ceasefire took effect in January, but had warned it would renew its attacks on shipping if Israel continues to block aid from entering Gaza. The Pentagon says the operation against the Houthis will continue until the Houthis pledge to stop their attacks. Heidi Jo Castro, Al Jazeera, Washington.
Let's return to that phone call has ended between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Let me take you through the lines that are emerging. They are coming from the Kremlin. I took you through some of them, saying that Putin had reaffirmed his commitment to a peaceful resolution of the conflict. That is very broad brush. We were waiting to hear more of the crucial detail, but also the Kremlin making the point Ukraine and Russia would agree to swap 175 prisoners of war, and Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin agreed to stay in contact. Now, in terms of the context of any potential ceasefire initiative, the Kremlin saying in that context, Vladimir Putin has said there must be a stop to Ukrainian mobilization and the arming of Ukraine. And that is very, very clearly a condition, exactly the sort of thing that EU officials are warning against. Alexander Stubb, who is the president of Finland, I asked him directly about that point because it had been floated that may be one of the conditions that the Russian president would set, and he has done exactly that according to the Kremlin. I'll repeat it because it is very important here. In terms of the context of the ceasefire initiative, they say, Moscow, that Vladimir Putin has said there must be a stop to Ukrainian mobilization. So that's what Ukraine does. And the arming of Ukraine, that of course is what European countries and NATO have been doing. So two critical conditions there, both I would say are unacceptable at first reading to the various Europeans, given what they've said over recent weeks. So those are some of the lines coming into us here from that meeting. One other line, actually, I forgot to mention, with the Kremlin saying that Vladimir Putin has agreed to halt strikes on the energy infrastructure for 30 days, assuming, of course, there was some sort of ceasefire.
You were listening to the WINN FM 98.9 newscast. Our top stories were: St. Kitts and Nevis focuses on water conservation amidst global glacier concerns. U.S. Department of State spokesperson, there is no list on recent alleged draft travel ban list. St. Kitts and Nevis hosts Green Climate Fund Caribbean Regional Dialogue. St. Lucia Prime Minister cautions against reckless statements amid U.S. travel restrictions. Guyana Opposition Party calls for Guyana Online Academy of Learning to be paused and reviewed. Internationally, Israel has resumed combat in Gaza with full force, says Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Thank you for listening.